Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Military Forces Unleashed. Today we're diving into something that packs a serious punch on wheels, the M1128 mobile gun system, also known as the Stryker. Now you've probably seen this beast rolling through the battlefield in various military documentaries or video games, but how much do you really know about what makes it tick? Stick around, because we're about to break it all down, warts and all. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're ready for some real talk about military machines. Let's get into it. When the U.S. Army rolled out the M1128 mobile gun system, MGS, it was meant to be a game changer. Promising speed, versatility, and firepower, this vehicle seemed tailor-made for the modern battlefield, especially in urban environments where agility and adaptability are as crucial as raw power. The concept of mounting a 105mm cannon onto a wheeled chassis was bold. Why stick with slow, cumbersome tanks when you could deliver devastating firepower on something that moved more like a Humvee? But, as with many ambitious military projects, the M1128's real-world performance didn't exactly live up to the hype. Designed as part of the broader Stryker family, it was supposed to bridge the gap between the heavy armor of main battle tanks and the speed of lighter armored vehicles. In theory, the MGS would hit hard and fast, deploying quickly in hotspots while avoiding the logistical headaches of tank warfare. Unfortunately, the reality proved to be much more complex. Let's take a deeper dive into the M1128's strengths and weaknesses and understand why this system, despite its potential, ultimately fell short of expectations. The design philosophy behind the M1128 was ambitious. Take the firepower of a tank, put it on wheels, and create a vehicle that could zip across battlefields, rain destruction on the enemy, and then escape before they could react. The MGS was built on the 8-wheeled Stryker platform, giving it a level of mobility that traditional track tanks could never match. Its top speed of 97 km per hour on roads allowed it to deploy faster than most armored units. But here's where the cracks in the design start to show. While wheels provide speed on hard surfaces, they are far less effective in off-road environments, especially in rugged or muddy terrains. Tanks with tracks can climb over obstacles, churn through deep mud, and cross difficult terrain. The MGS, on the other hand, struggles to keep up in these conditions. Imagine trying to race a sports car through a swamp. Speed counts for nothing if you're stuck in the mud. Moreover, the Stryker chassis was never meant to handle the powerful recoil of a 105mm cannon. Every time the MGS fired its main gun, the entire vehicle needed to brace itself. Firing on the move was nearly impossible without drastically losing accuracy. While other tanks, like the M1 Abrams, can fire with precision even while driving, the MGS often had to come to a halt before firing, negating much of the advantage its mobility supposedly provided. At first glance, the M1128's armament looks impressive. The 105mm M68A2 cannon it carries was once the standard gun for early versions of the M1 Abrams tank. That cannon could, in theory, take out enemy armored vehicles, fortified positions, and even some buildings with ease. For an urban combat vehicle, this seemed ideal. The MGS could provide direct fire support in environments where tanks might struggle with narrow streets and sharp corners. However, by the time the MGS entered service in the early 2000s, its 105mm cannon was already showing its age. Main battle tanks, like the Russian T-90 and the American Abrams, had moved on to larger 120mm guns, capable of penetrating the thickest modern armor. Against tanks like these, the MGS's 105mm gun wasn't much more than a pop gun. Additionally, the MGS only carried 18 rounds of main gun ammunition. In a prolonged battle, that meant it could quickly run out of firepower and would need to retreat to resupply, a luxury that isn't always available in the heat of combat. Compare this to tanks like the M1 Abrams, which can carry up to 42 rounds, and the limitations of the MGS become clear. In a protracted engagement, the MGS would be more of a liability than an asset. The U.S. Army was eager to put the MGS to the test in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, environments that seemed tailor-made for its urban combat capabilities. In theory, the MGS was supposed to provide a quick response solution to urban insurgents, capable of neutralizing enemy strongholds and offering fire support for infantry. And to be fair, the MGS did have some success in these roles. Its speed and mobility allowed it to navigate city streets that would have been difficult for larger, heavier tanks. The 105mm cannon could take down fortified enemy positions with ease, and its smaller profile made it less of a target for long-range anti-tank missiles. But the same urban environments that played to the MGS's strengths also highlighted its weaknesses. The vehicle's relatively light armor left it vulnerable to IEDs, improvised explosive devices, and RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, weapons that insurgents in both Iraq and Afghanistan used in abundance. While the MGS was fast, it wasn't fast enough to avoid these threats completely, and its light armor meant that when it was hit, it didn't always survive. In fact, insurgents quickly realized that the MGS was more vulnerable than the heavier M1 Abrams, and it became a preferred target. Armor is the linchpin of any armored vehicle's survivability, and this is another area where the M1128's design didn't quite meet the needs of modern warfare. The Stryker platform was never intended to have the same level of protection as a tank, and while the MGS was equipped with slat armor to provide some defense against RPGs, this was more of a band-aid solution than a true answer to the threats it faced. Slat armor, while effective against certain types of attacks, is not a cure-all. It works by causing RPG rounds to detonate prematurely, but in urban combat, where insurgents can fire from multiple angles at close range, the effectiveness of slat armor is limited. Additionally, the MGS's light armor left it vulnerable to larger anti-tank weapons and even some heavy machine gun fire. What made matters worse was the MGS's tendency to suffer from mobility-killing hits. A single RPG round that didn't penetrate the armor might still blow off a tire or damage the suspension, leaving the vehicle immobilized in hostile territory. And without the heavy armor of a tank, an immobile MGS became a sitting duck. For all its supposed mobility and firepower, the MGS had one major flaw that wasn't immediately apparent until it hit the battlefield: maintenance. Keeping a fleet of Stryker vehicles in working condition during a combat deployment is no small task, and the MGS proved to be particularly finicky. The suspension system, designed to give the vehicle some off-road capability, was prone to breakdowns. Tires would wear out quickly under the heavy load of the vehicle and its cannon, and any serious damage to the wheels could render the MGS immobile. When you're fighting a guerrilla war where roadside bombs are a constant threat, that's a big problem. Adding to the logistical headache was the ammunition supply. With only 18 rounds of main gun ammunition available, the MGS had to be resupplied frequently, which meant pulling back from the fight just when it was needed most. This constant need for resupply put additional strain on logistics chains that were already stretched thin in the remote environments of Iraq and Afghanistan. As the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan wound down, so too did the usefulness of the M1128 mobile gun system. In a world where warfare is increasingly dominated by precision-guided missiles, drones, and cyber warfare, the MGS began to feel like a relic of a bygone era. The U.S. Army, faced with budget constraints and the need to invest in next-generation technologies, made the decision to phase out the MGS. The vehicle's shortcomings, its light armor, limited firepower, and maintenance issues, meant that it was never going to be a long-term solution for modern warfare. Instead, the Army has shifted its focus toward more advanced systems that offer better protection, firepower, and technological integration. The MGS will likely be remembered as a well-intentioned but ultimately flawed experiment. While it did have its moments of success, it was never able to live up to the lofty expectations placed upon it. In the end, the M1128 was a vehicle caught between two worlds, too lightly armored to be a true tank, but too heavy and cumbersome to be an effective light reconnaissance vehicle. The M1128 mobile gun system is a classic example of military procurement where ambition outstripped practicality. The concept of a fast mobile gun platform was intriguing, but the execution left much to be desired. Between its limited firepower, vulnerability to modern threats, and logistical burdens, the MGS was never able to fully live up to its promise. As the MGS is retired from service, it serves as a reminder that military technology, no matter how innovative, must be rooted in the realities of the battlefield. In the case of the M1128, those realities proved to be far more complex than its designers originally envisioned. And that's a wrap on the M1128 mobile gun system. It's got the firepower, it's got the mobility, but like everything in the military world, it's not without its flaws. So what do you think? Is the Stryker a modern marvel or just another overhyped vehicle with too many problems to count? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's breakdown, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for more military insights. Every like and sub helps us keep these deep dives coming your way. Until next time, stay sharp and stay curious.